It's the Human First AI Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is Vinod Kumar from Cynthium AI. You can find them at cynthium.ai. They made it super easy. You can find me at avenue9.com. I made it easy as well. This week, we're going to be talking about merchandising. So, Vinod, I'm really excited about this. We haven't talked about e-commerce yet, but there's some really cool things going on with AI, from shuffling the products around so that you're personalizing recommendations to, keyword automation and auto ranking and all kinds of different optimization tools that you're doing. But I think it makes a ton of sense to simplify merchandising with AI in a very human first way, because no human wants to sit there and shuffle these results and tag all these keywords and all these different products on the seller side. But also on the buyer side, you want to see what's most relevant for you. So I think this is one area of AI where it's kind of benefiting both parties and it doesn't feel like a shortcut. Is that how you landed here too?
You're right on target, Mike. And first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. A long-time listener, first-time participant. This is exciting.
Love
Am
your
I
show.
allowed to pick up favorite episode? I think duct tape marketing was my favorite episode, by the way. uh,
Yeah. John's awesome.
yeah, that's awesome. So merchandising is interesting because I think, this is actually true. Merchandisers are the glue between a brand and consumers. So if you think about when you go shopping in a store or online, the merchandiser is the one that decides how products get presented to the consumer. And their decision has a direct impact on how we experience a brand, what we see. Like when you go to a store, say you walk into a Target, there's a certain arrangement of clothing and a pattern and all that stuff that takes place. The merchandisers are the ones that are doing it, and the way it is done has an influence on how you shop and what decisions you make. So the merchandiser is sort of the connecting glue between a brand and the shopper. So, but merchandisers are also sort of the unsung heroes of retail and e-commerce, if you think about it, because there are no merchandising specialist softwares out there. Everything that merchandisers need are sub features of an e-commerce platform. And there's really not a lot of specialist tools available to make a merchandiser's lives easier. Even today, with all the AI all around us, merchandisers are still doing a lot of manual grunt work to merchandise an e-commerce site, to merchandise a store. And that's how we landed on where we landed on with Cynthium. It's about bringing joy back to merchandising, making their work joyful again. And that's what we're trying to do with Cynthium.
Is it mostly e-commerce, or do you have retail solutions as well?
We work with retailers as well as branded manufacturers. So those are the two groups of customers we work with. Uh, Branded manufacturing we had more success with brands rather than retailers, and that's somewhat intentional because our messaging and our positioning has been very much focused on positioning ourselves towards specific brands and specific types of brands, and that is just to make sure that as a startup we are laser focused on the specific type of problems we want to solve and the specific types of users we want to serve. So we've focused on brands to begin with.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a ton of lessons here, even for like small and medium-sized businesses, because big retailers have had this problem for a long time. They're purchasing millions of dollars of inventory. They want to make sure they get it right. But even a small business, if you're going to build something, if you're going to make something, if you got a cool idea for a t-shirt design, you really need to test this and find out what the market is, what the price point is, which colors are sell and which ones don't. So you don't waste a ton of time and money. If you're a small business, that can put you out of business really quick, or a trend changes, or keywords drop away. We're seeing keyword results shift and change, and the way people buy change all the time, or Amazon, or China decides to knock off your product and sell it for exactly, $5 cheaper and stuff. Like, there's a lot of difficult challenges in e-commerce that I've kind of, shied away from these brand products in retail. I did one startup about 10 years ago where it was chic personalized gifts with my ex-wife. And we found that some products are impossible to sell, like mugs, custom printed mugs. They were really cool looking and people would buy them if they saw them, but it's impossible to advertise online because you know how many different mugs, tumblers you're competing with Stanley, and then the promotional mugs where you buy 1,000 of them custom at a time, and there was no way to get a market. And I'm telling this is a super long question, so it looks like you're staying with me so far. But the one we found worked was front license plates. There's a limited number of states. There's like 11 states where you don't need a front license plate. So you can have a custom monogrammed license plate. There wasn't a lot of competition. It was easy. Nobody was advertising on the keywords. And we're like, oh, we found this niche. But it took us thousands of dollars and months to figure out which of these products would sell. I could see where AI would be very helpful in machine learning and predictive analytics and data analytics to help us know before we waste time printing all these mugs that we know which products are going to work or where there's room in the market before we start doing that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that a
you're
good case
absolutely
study?
you're absolutely right. It's funny you mentioned this because the very first customer, the very first brand that signed up to launch their business on Cynthium made coffee mugs.
It's tough.
I kid you not.
Did
Um,
it work?
Very large company.
Okay.
They're not a startup. They're a very large company, and their mugs are pretty popular. Uh, and they already had an established business. But
Yeah.
the problem was, how many different varieties of mugs can you make? Like different colors and shapes and sizes. So colors and sizes are a big deal when it comes to mugs, right? And
Yeah.
when we get into colors, merchandising is very, very difficult. Like imagine this: someone makes a mug, and let's say it's a blue mug. They're not going to call it the blue mug. They're going to call it some really attractive name, like blue
Yeah.
sky, whatever, right? But when a shopper goes to the site, let's say this is called coffeemugs.com, whatever, that's not the name of the customer, but just to
Yeah.
use a proxy. Say, as a shopper, you go to coffeemugs.com. Are you searching for blue sky, whatever, blah, blah, blah? No, you search for blue mug. How does one, as a merchandiser, make sure that the search for a blue mug brings out the actual different varieties of blue you have in your catalog, in your inventory? How does the merchandiser make sure that the ones that are most available are sorted first, and the ones that are not necessarily available are below the fold, as we like to call it in e-commerce? How do we make sure that the ones have a higher contribution margin are prioritized so that the brand can make more profit? How do we make sure that it is relevant to what the shopper is actually looking for? Can we actually know what the shopper is looking for? Can we use AI to derive what the shopper is looking for? Perhaps by looking at shopper behaviors of other shoppers who may have searched for similar blue mugs in the past. So all of those signals have to be put together to deliver a very compelling shopping experience. And that's
Yeah.
where Cynthium helps. That's where that's a big problem. It's very time consuming. It's very complicated. There's a lot of data downloading into spreadsheets and mathematics involved. And
I saw this
merchandisers
on your website and it really makes a ton of sense for people. I think if people are listening to this show, they're trying to think about how to apply AI like in their world, in their marketing. What does all this generative AI mean? And I think a lot of people default to, oh, well, let me write some marketing copy or I'll write a social media post or something real quick, which is fine. It's great for that. But what I'm hearing you say and what I saw on your website that I thought was so compelling is these search terms. Now, if somebody misspells something and so they were trying to write blue, but they left the E on the end, in previous dumb searches, that wouldn't have pulled up a match because, sky blue and navy blue were different search terms. And so maybe there were some general matches and stuff we could do, but it was pretty dumb. Now, with these smart searches with AI, you can have conversational search, you could have intent based searches, like you mentioned, but also we can now say, okay, AI knows that, you know, um, if we spell the word through THRU like a millennial, that we know what they're meaning. It can interpret it and make more close matches to identify stuff than we ever have before. And I think that kind of language understanding is really a game changer in search. So again, I'm asking a really long question, but in my experience, it was, I think, even just like 5 years ago, like 50% of all Google searches were first time searches. Nobody had ever thought to type in those letters in that pattern ever before, even in 20 years of using Google, because we all make up our own language and our own intent, and we don't know exactly what we're looking for. And sometimes we write it in a full sentence, and sometimes we don't. We just throw out word salad. And so using AI, I think, is a really smart application just when it comes to search. Can you talk a little bit more about conversational searches and some of these like um, strategies for minimizing zero results that might come up in previous merchandising searches?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what you're referring to is what's called Googlish, the random keyword salad, right?
Yeah.
We used to use Googlish to search. Even when we were not searching on Google, Google has trained us to search for information using word salad keywords, right? Using Googlish elsewhere. So even on e-commerce sites, we used to see evidence of people, shoppers using Googlish to search for products.
And then they
But
would get
now,
mad that they didn't get Google like results. And you're like,
yes,
well, I don't have $1 billion and 10,000 programmers to
well,
figure out what you're
here's
trying to
here's an
say.
example. Say you're an apparel retailer, right? You're selling clothes. Khaki versus khakis. Khaki is a color. It's brown. It's a derivative of brown. Versus khakis means a pair of pants. It's not multiple colors of brown. So how do you tell a system that when someone searches for khakis, you show them all pants, but when someone searches for khaki in singular, it's not actually one pant. It's actually all the apparel in that shade of brown. It's
If
not
they're
singular
searching for
versus plural.
khakis, we show them a recommendation for New Balance shoes as well as what we do. But, and then direct them to denim and say, like, come on. No, I'm kidding. That's great. So yeah, tell me more about that. How does your product or other AI solutions help fix some of these things?
Yeah, in the old world, in the what we call the legacy search engine world, typically a merchandiser will have to configure synonyms, tell the system that khaki is a synonym of brown, and khakis is a synonym for pants. In the new world, that happens automatically using natural language algorithms, using even some aspects of large language models like OpenAI, like Claude, like Gemini. We can build systems that make these matches automatic because we have what decades of search information historically
Yeah.
available in LLMs, right? So if an LLM can determine naturally the difference between khaki and khakis, why can't a search engine that's running the search for an e-commerce site do that? So that's where we want to go. We want to reduce the workload on merchandisers and having to figure out what these synonyms and hypernyms and compound words and all these different dictionary things that they have to do to drive search. Instead of doing that, can we deploy the latest and greatest AI algorithms to do it for them so that they can focus on the creative aspects of merchandising and not these laborious linguistic circus that they have to manage and figure out to make things work properly?
Yeah, I think it's a game changer. If anybody has not ever done that before, it's amazing to me that even Alexa and Siri and Google and stuff were programmed by what you said. People sitting down and saying, this word means this. If you hear this word, do this, respond this way. And it was all programmed by hand with millions of different words and search keywords and terms. And now we're actually generating these on the fly. We're understanding what somebody is typing in, and we're generating through the natural language processing results based on what they're saying, or we can have more creative algorithms to do this rather than manually entering each connection, which to me leads me to my next question. With that chic personalized gifts website that I was doing, we were trying to do custom products, allowing people to, type in their initials or their name or give it as a gift and put somebody else, and they could choose their colors, and we wouldn't make the product until they place the order. So then we could do this like one-off screen printing or sublimation labeling to create the product and then ship it. And I thought that was really cool. Variable data printing in paper and stuff is really advanced. I can see a world in the very near future where you don't have inventory. You're not making the product until somebody orders it. And so you can use AI to visually represent what that product would look like and then not actually make it until somebody orders it or it becomes popular enough to order, sort of like a Kickstarter type thing. Have you seen any applications like that yet?
Um, to some extent, I don't think we're there yet. I've seen a lot of experimentation, especially when combined with what can be 3D printed with the current 3D printing technology. Additive
Mhm.
manufacturing is an interesting space where instead of taking one big block of raw material and subtracting raw material to construct a product, you get the raw material and then you construct the product from scratch, um, which is what 3D printing is about. But I can imagine on demand 3D printed things as becoming mainstream. Today, it's already possible, but today we're doing what? Tchotchkes and figurines and like
Right.
keychains and stuff like that. The most sophisticated use case I've seen is Adidas 3D printing a shoe, which they were able to do. It's 3D printed. It looks kind of a prop from an alien movie, but still, it's a 3D printed shoe and it is made to order. You place the order and they print it and then they ship it out.
I mean,
But
yeah, we've seen made to order, and maybe it's more just in time inventory. You can at least tell with AI when you're running low, when something is surging, and pay more attention to
but
stuff than
imagine this
what
future where,
humans were having to do.
yeah, but there's so much data now available based on just search. You can predict, you can look at search data and you can see what's trending. Are you familiar with a service called Exploding Topics?
No.
And now it feels like I'm interviewing you. But
Y-
Exploding
Do it.
Topics is a service that finds, based on Google search traffic data, it finds what's trending and what's been trending up or what's been trending down. And they publish their data pretty much on an open basis. It's a paid service. You get more insights if you pay for the service. But you can see what's trending up or down. Like, for example, zero proof cocktails have been trending up for the past year or so on a consistent basis. So imagine a system, imagine an AI agent, if you will, that listens to or is tapped into services like Exploding Topics, identifies a trending product, looks for a particular threshold to be crossed, which then once it's crossed, it finds a 3D printing or an additive manufacturing service that can manufacture that product, designs a product, manufactures the product, creates a one-page landing page, creates a social media campaign, launches the campaign, has an allocated budget to run the campaign, say a couple $100, launches the campaign, drives traffic to the landing page, and as soon as the orders are placed, sends the orders to the manufacturing setup to be able to for the product to manufacture and shipped. That, except for the daisy chaining aspect of it, a large parts of what I just described are already happening in isolation, in
Right.
disconnected chunks.
The tools
But
all exist. Like it
yes,
is technically possible
yes.
now. Yeah. I think that's fascinating, and you're kind of bringing me into um, the next question there, which is like, where do you think it all plays out? What does the future of e-commerce look like? Because I'm struggling with what you just said. The example you outlined is, well, if anybody with AI could really do that, build an agent to do that, it wouldn't really cost a whole lot of even startup inventory, or you could, borrow money if you know that the AI has predicted things and doing it. I'm wondering how you think, especially e-commerce, is going to play out. Like there could be a million places, or is it going to be just Amazon ends up doing that and takes the every option of every product that's searched for that's profitable and eats up all of e-commerce? Like I think it feels to me like we're going to reach some sort of bubble it's not sustainable if everyone can do it with AI. So how do you think that plays out in the next 5-10 years?
I have a maybe I'm an optimist, but I have an optimistic view of the future. I think this is going to play out well in our benefit. Here's why. As far as retail and brand manufacturing, especially fashion, is concerned,
Mm,
we as a society are becoming very conscious about the unsustainable nature of fashion, specifically fast fashion.
yeah.
Stories of luxury brands destroying their products only because they don't want to be resold in secondhand markets are causing enough controversy and scandal that people are rethinking how they're buying. Just look at the rise of consignment stores as a sign of how we think our future behavior is going to change. So I think what's going to happen is that the concept of fast fashion is going to evolve into sustainable immediate fashion,
Mm,
where technologies like just-in-time manufacturing, technologies like agentic AI that can understand your need, however crudely we may express our need, to find the right sustainable way to let someone manufacture and send it so that it's not mass manufactured, it's not sitting in some warehouse consuming heat and electricity, it's not offshore to some unknown part of the world where labor laws are loose. It's not shipped through a container causing a ton of CO2 emissions as it travels to different parts of the world. But I'm I'm envisioning these interconnected closed loop systems that
mm,
connects demand to production within a proximity that makes it sustainable in the future, where AI is involved in understanding what we need. Like, for example, I've been looking for, like I just said before we got on the call, um, I've had bad experience with the microphone that I'm using. So I've been looking for different microphones to enhance a better conversational experience in virtual situations like these. But today the options are so many. But if an AI agent understands my setup, understands my preferences, understands my practices of what I need, what I prefer, it should be able to find the right place where it is perhaps manufactured or even assembled to be able to be then delivered to me in a short period of time. And I don't imagine this to be as centralized as it is today, but I imagine it to be truly distributed and fragmented in a way that different producers are connected to different consumers, and the AI systems are making are matchmaking between demand and
yeah.
supply.
I like that. I think that's a great outcome, and a lot of that is going to happen. What I'm interested in and is who decides on what these algorithms are doing, right? Like I could see the same thing being used for nefarious purposes if we're trying to sell you something that's mislabeled or, like you said, a knockoff. Or I was even thinking like. It's going to be awkward in the future when your AI, like, just tells you one day, it's like, hey buddy, it's time to go up a size in those jeans. I'm just going to go ahead and order you the extra large because they're looking a little tight. And but then I thought, well, actually it could just do that and then have the label printed that still says a large. So I'm still like, I'm confident that I'm still wearing a large shirt, but they've just made it bigger for me so that the large has a little extra room where I need it. And then it's like, well, who's going to make all those decisions? Who's going to decide? And I guess that's a good question for you. Is do you think it's going to be the big brands and the big players, the governments, or the people controlling the AI, or is it going to really still be consumer driven and you decide how your algorithm treats you or how much sustainability or ethics you want in your own algorithm?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, right? That is the new battleground, and it's a green field, and everybody's vying for the main to become the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. I don't think anybody is today. So today you have general purpose agents like Perplexity and Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude duking it out, and then you have the open source world with DeepSeek and Llama trying to vie for a piece of their own mind share. And then you have all these specialized companies per industry and per segment. Like, for example, in legal, there's an agentic company called Harvey that is quite popular among law firms
Mm,
because it automatically pores through historical cases to find precedents based on what argument you want to pursue in a particular case. So they are carving out a niche within the legal industry. Similarly, there's insurance, there's real estate, and so everybody's vying for these different to stake their ground. So
yeah.
so I think if this plays out, just to extrapolate, I think the future is going to be a small collection of general purpose agents and a large collection of specialist agents that specialize in one or two areas. I think that's a very logical place to end in terms of where this might go.
Yeah, I would also add to that. I'm seeing that, as like storage capabilities and processing speeds increase even on like personal computers, and then the size of these models are shrinking, that they have sample AI agents that you could run on a high-end MacBook
Local
now.
instances, yeah,
Uh, so it could be that we all have our own AI that then, decides whether it how it interacts with the ones that you described, the specialist AIs. Like it could hire AI agents on your behalf,
yeah.
or how much data it's sharing to large models like Google and Amazon and stuff about you, and could control your own privacy and firewalls and stuff like that. I think that gives me a lot of hope for the future, that if we can keep some of these open source things free and small, that we could empower individuals uh, to
I
set up
agree
their
with
own
you. Breaking
systems. Yeah.
down walled gardens is really important to make sure that that innovation is truly for the benefit of the society and does not accrue to a small group of organizations at the end of the day. This is a much bigger game. This is a much bigger. Um, the outcomes are going to be outsized, and I think it's important to intentionally construct a world where the benefits are as widely distributed and as widely available as
Mm.
possible. But you're right. I agree with you. This we are in a very important juncture as far as the evolution of this particular technology is concerned.
I love that sentiment. So my last question for you is, I think we're of similar age. Like we grew up in a time when none of this existed, to
Yeah.
like now we're living a sci-fi movie. And I think within our lifetimes, in the next 20, 30 years, we could be living in a crazy sci-fi utopia or dystopia. So if you had to guess right now, where do you think we end up? Is there an example of a sci-fi movie you would like us to end up in, or you think we are most likely to resemble the truth?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we'll end up in Blade Runner situation. I
Dang
don't
it.
think so. I hope not.
Yeah.
I'm more optimistic. I'm more of the not Wally, but I'm trying to find a nice scientific, nice movie equivalent, which I don't think any of the movies have represented the type of future that I think we're going to end up in.
Yeah.
But here's why I say that. I don't think the future is dystopian. Um,
Mm.
Hollywood postulated that 1997 Skynet will rule the world, but that didn't happen, right? And so, what's going to happen, in my thinking, is it is going to be one of those more optimistic situations. It'll be more Minority Report kind, I think, or even Back to the Future type, where it's more about assisting and augmenting, so that humans can live better lives, so that our quality of life improves. However, the onus will be upon us as individuals and us as a society to make sure that we leverage these advancements to move ourselves forward and not to regress back. Because I do think that there is possibility of regression, but as a collective, I think we are interested in moving forward, and that's why I think we will move forward instead of regressing back. For example, simple case, ChatGPT makes it super easy to draft LinkedIn posts. LinkedIn posts are getting crappier and crappier by the day because now you can actually spot a ChatGPT authored post versus a human authored post. This is a phase, this will phase out, and people will understand and realize and start to ignore AI authored content in favor of authentic, genuine, opinionated content. And therefore, the algorithms, because they want eyeballs, they want attention, the algorithms of platforms like LinkedIn will start to promote and put more premium on human created content instead of AI created content. Same for digital art. It is going to be super difficult for someone to actually paint a work of art instead of generating a work of art using Midjourney or DALI. So that's going to do? The more something is abundant in supply, the lower the value of that's going to drop. The rarer something is, the higher the value of that's going to be. So art is
Yeah.
going to be more important because it's going to be valued more because it's a lot rarer than Midjourney AI DALI generated art.
Slop.
So that's why I think
I think, yeah, that's a
future is
great,
optimistic.
intelligent take, and I think it's probably all of the above, right? Short term, it's gonna be messy, like you said. There's outsized gains for some people, and it'll be manipulated and stuff. Mid range, I see something like a Minority Report slash Idiocracy slash Wally
Oh, Idiocracy! I
situation.
forgot about that one.
But then I think if we go long enough, the health benefits, the stuff, curing cancer and diseases and Alzheimer's and all that stuff will also exist. So I think if you go for further enough out, um, you get into something that looks more like Star Trek Next Generation is probably the best, or
Probably,
um,
yes.
something more utopian like the Jetsons, where it's like, hey, we got replicators for food. Nobody's starving. You can make whatever you want. Nobody has to work, but you choose to work or make art because that's what you want to do. And I hope we can speed up that messy process in the middle, because it could get pretty crazy to get there. But I think I'm hopeful that eventually the optimism, the good, and the abundance will win out.
I agree. There's just one thing. I don't agree with the work's going to disappear and we all we're going to get to do whatever we want to do. I don't think work, as in creating something that others find value in, I think that act of work, I don't think that's ever going to go away. Because I think there'll always be value in something that humans produce and humans make or humans do. We never got into this in this conversation, but I actually own a couple of coffee shops that my wife runs, and customer service, the human interaction of serving someone a coffee and having that interaction. We have bots, I mean, they can order online and coffee will
Yeah,
come to them,
right.
but the human interaction aspect, there's always value in it, and people appreciate it when someone live comes to you with your coffee and asks you how your day is going, or if you accidentally spill something, brings you a mop and makes sure you're doing okay. That there's this value in that human connection, and I think that's not going to go away. And therefore, I don't think work is ever going to go away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love it. I noticed in the pandemic and stuff, just when we can order everything online, like it's not as good. You miss those just smiles and interactions, and like you said, how was your day? How can I help you? Kind of things that you want to get back to. And the pandemic didn't kill restaurants, although it was a dangerous time for them. I think the same thing kind of happens in a lot of different industries as well. And when you look at like a Star Trek Next Generation, people still have jobs, or they choose roles that they want on a ship, because they still want to contribute and make a difference, and have causes to work for. So that's a great way
Freedom of
to wrap
choice.
up. But I want to
Yep.
ask you about what your work is, and what you're trying to do. How can we help you, or you help us with Synthium.ai?
Synthium.ai is an agentic merchandising engine, like we discussed before. And it is an engine that enables brands to make merchandising enjoyable and joyful. It cuts down on a whole bunch of manual labor, and it truly automates the work that really is mostly grunt work. So it frees up merchandisers' time to be more creative and strategic and collaborative within their organization. So that's what we do, and we are currently working with brands, fairly large brands, to test this technology, to deploy this technology, and see how well it enables them to improve their margin, most importantly, contribution margin. And that's what we're doing. So the way I look at it is, if there are e-commerce managers or brand managers listening to the podcast, and if they want to ever learn about how a technology like Cynthium can help make merchandising better, help them um, improve merchandising success in improving the bottom line of their business, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to, even if you end up not using our product, we'll be happy to talk to you about how different, what are the different ways in which AI can be deployed to make your lives better. And on that note, in about 3 weeks or so, we're going to publish a white paper that is going to double down on understanding how the priorities of brands are migrating from a focus on revenue growth to now being focused on growing margin, more specifically contribution margin. We have done some research on what's happening in the industry, so that people understand, brands understand that they're not the only ones going through this. This seems to be a cross-cutting trend across multiple brands and multiple retailers of different sizes. So that's going to be out soon. So it'll be available on our website, on LinkedIn. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you will get notified when that's out. So if you're interested, that's another thing that you may want to keep an eye on.
Do that for sure. Go find Vinod Kumar on LinkedIn. I am Mike Montague. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you listen or watch to these. Send it to somebody that you think needs to hear it. Maybe somebody in charge of e-commerce at your company. And if you need help trying to figure out how to humanize AI tools and, upgrade AI generated content to speak human in sales and marketing, or find a way to spread your voice wider and further with the power of AI, go to avenue9.com. Until next time, keep going. Have fun with it, everybody. Later.